Hello everyone, this is Joe Workman, and today I'd like to introduce you to the new Fluid Column Stack. Fluid Columns allows you to design fluid layouts for both your fixed width and responsive design websites. Fluid Columns allows you to design a lot of different layouts all within the same stack. Let's look at some of these now. Now as you see this top section, we have 4 elements here that are evenly spaced out and uniformly styled. Now where Fluid Columns is a little bit different is if we look at the second set, we have our top row has 3 columns and our bottom row has 2. They are different sizes, so you can see you can customize, not only have uniform layouts, but also custom layouts for every single element. Now our next layout is called Fluid Rows. Now no matter what the size of your elements or style, you'll notice that the fluid rows will fill up the width of your container and then start a new row when necessary. The fluid grid layout allows you to define a specific number of columns, and the fluid grid will keep to that and automatically determine the spacing between each element so that the grid is built properly. The masonry layout is very interesting in that it will automatically put the puzzle of your elements together so that it can fit them as tight as possible in the area provided. And secondly, the masonry stamp is a similar concept in that it will automatically lay out your elements so that they fit the best on your page. However, it will always build the layout around a predefined static corner stamp. Now we've seen the fluid column now in a fixed width environment. Let's go ahead and see the power of this stack really shine with a variable width responsive site. So here we have a variable width site, and let's look at the power of the fluid column stack in this environment. As we notice, we have our same layouts. However, if you notice when we resize this top layout, the columns are nicely animated down to their new widths and layout. If we look at fluid rows, we'll see in action exactly how fluid row works, and that it will dynamically create the number of rows that you need based on your site's width. Similarly for fluid grid, we'll notice that the grid spacing will dynamically be changed based on your site width. The masonry stack really shines in a fluid environment. It allows you to do some really great effects where it will automatically lay out your website and your elements based on the width of your browser. And of course, masonry stamp that allows you to automatically and fluidly arrange your elements around a static image or really anything. This could even be a video, text, whatever you'd like. So as we see here, the fluid column stack works beautifully in an environment for not only fixed width, but also variable width and responsive designs. Now before we go, let's go ahead and dive and look at some of the great settings that the fluid column stack has. When you drag the fluid column stack out, the default is 2 columns. However, you can add as many elements as you wish. You can change the gutter width, which is basically the gap between each of the elements on the page. You can define the float. Do you want your elements to float to the right of the page, or do you want them to kind of fall and float to the left of the page? Okay, we have our default layouts that we saw, the float rows, the grid, and masonry. Now when you click masonry, to get the masonry stamp layout, there's simply a checkbox here which will unveil a new drop area that you can put in your static stamp. Now you do have to define a static width and height for this stamp area so that the masonry layout knows exactly where to move elements around. Further down in the settings is where we can actually define a style for all of the elements that we have. We can define rounded corners for all elements, uniform background colors for every single element, define static heights to make sure that all of the elements are the same height. Now, as well as static height, we also have the ability to define a uniform width for all of the elements within fluid columns. So if you wanted to have all of your elements be the same exact width and height, you can easily do that by defining a static height and then defining the uniform sizing width. By default, it's percent, which is 48%, but you can also define pixels. So let's say we wanted everything to be 100 pixels wide. Every element would now be 100 pixels wide as well as 100 pixels tall. Now, if you wanted to get really detailed, you can go to Detailed Custom and define a exact pixel or percentage width for every single element there. I hope you enjoy this new stack and have a great day.